one, yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, yeah. We represent that swag, that MEAC, and let me say, what's up to Tennessee?
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on service today, so we'll see if we can hold it up for him on this tremendous day we have here. Welcome to episode 90 of Inside HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, i.e. all things HBCU sports, for institutions large and small, from NAIA to NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and the HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Kenyatta Cavil, Dr. Cavil, along with my co-host Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. We are filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KSWA 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. And if you hadn't heard about it today, this is election day, as a lot of people have said. It's been going on for a while because many people have been early voting. But we'll get a chance to kind of get into that some and look to stay over. At 8 o'clock, we will have a special broadcast by Jericho Broadcasting Network where we will go inside and do some in-depth analysis on the evaluation of Election Day today. With that, today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Today's show will be a good one as we will be discussing the latest of HBCU sports. Later, we will talk about coaching in football team during the pandemic and helping athletes raise their voices via activism and voting with FAMU head football coach Willie Simmons. So I'm excited about that, and I think obviously today is an appropriate day to take a little deeper dive in that. And Coach Simmons has been one of the leading voices out there in terms of coaches, not just from an HBCU perspective, but in general even more so. Obviously, you have Coach Mouton, basketball coach with North Carolina Central University. He's been quite outspoken as well. But we'll get a chance to get some thoughts on that from none other than head coach of the FAMU Rattlers, Coach Willie Simmons. With that, let's get into some HBCU news of the day, some updates and things of that nature, and jump on here and see who's checking us out. So before I pass it to you, Charles, and get into some of that great dialogue, let's see who's on here checking us out today, giving us some update, giving us some love, as we have the comments coming in early and often. As you would expect it, Chuck Hunt is right in here in the mix, ready to go, coming out of Monroe, Louisiana. He gets the prize of the day. He's the first one out of the box today. Willie Alex Hine is not far behind. He said, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Here to get my HBCU lecture." Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. Checking in from Richmond, Virginia. CIAA country all the way. Yes, I like it. Chuck Hunt says Alabama A&M is going to have a basketball arena built. I saw the photos. Yes. We might get a little more into that. It looks pretty good too there, Chuck. It'll be interesting to see what they get done. Ralph Cooper brings it in. Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Charles Bishop in Washington. Boy, it's always nice to get love from the Hall of Fame, Radio Hall of
Yes,
Fame,
indeed.
Ralph Cooper. Ricky Burton, Tony Daniels, and 8 others are chiming in, including Dwight Moore. 1 hour left in the Central Time Zone to vote. Yes, Dwight Moore, get it out there. Yes, indeed. Jimmy is in here. What's up, family? Jimmy, we gonna tease a little bit. get in some basketball. I think you gave us a top 10, and then you snuck in and said what it would look like if FAMU was playing this year. So it'll be interesting to see and give you some information on Jimmy. He's a big basketball fan, and see what he thinks. He's going to do some love for the men's side. We'll see if we can get some updates on the women's side, maybe before the end of the show, certainly by next week. We'll see if we can get his top 10 order finished. I can give you a little heads up and a hint. He said Texas Southern and Jackson State are the real deal, and they are the team to keep your eyes on. I'll tell you whether that's men's or women's or for which one of those, because both of them should be pretty good. So keep listening. Yeah. We'll tell you what he is focusing on, which side of that. Ricky says, checking in, Graham fam, none other than the Mighty G is in the house. Jimmy says, where is Mike Washington? He's out on assignment. I don't know if he's in one of those voting lines, if he didn't do it early or not. I think I remember seeing a picture where the family went early voting, but you know Mike, he might would have just sent that out from, 2016, and he might be in line and trying to make sure he get it, because I know one way or the other, he's going to make sure his vote and his voice is heard. So we'll see what that looks like. Brother Timothy Johnson is in the house. Big time alpha man getting in there. You see a little cross promoting there with Biden Harris 2020, my alpha information is going on there. So Brother Johnson, good to see you. Kay Johnson, she's always in the house bringing it for the ladies. Good evening, HBCU Sports Lab in so many different ways. Willie Alex Hines says, Texas Southern for the men's and Jackson State for the ladies was predicted. We will see if that comes to pass in hoops. Great point. Let's see if we can hold off on just a little bit before we get to those orders of picks so we can go a little deeper dive before the interview. But we'll get into some HBCU news. I think the cat's out of the bag, and so many people are excited to get some type of sports. We'll see how much we'll be able to get. As we know, COVID-19 just is continuing to punish us. Lack of leadership. We'll see if that changes either after the night or the next couple of days, whenever they're able to call it. So we'll see what that looks like. Remember, 8 o'clock, we'll take a deeper dive in that more so. You'll hear my analysis of what that looks like. But with that said, let me pass it over to, as I've called him time to time, Professor Bishop. Since you're in the lab ready for this lecture, what HBCU sports news of the day do you have for us?
Sure thing, Dr. Cavil. Let's start over in the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. The MEAC, the SAAC, spearheads successful voter registration drive. And with it being election day, we wanted to bring this out first. With election day now here, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference member institutions, student-athlete advisory committees have been hard at work getting student-athletes and the general student body registered to vote. Among the conference's 11 member institutions, a total of 1,233 students were registered to vote. Voting is one of the cornerstones of our democracy. That is a quote from MEAC Commissioner Dennis Thomas. It is one of the most important ways in which we contribute to our society, and I am pleased to see such involvement in civic engagement among our member institution, student athletes, and overall student body. So that is a statement from the MEAC in regards to their Student Athlete Advisory Committee.
Man, I really appreciate that. Kudos to Dr. Dennis Thomas, the presidents and chancellors of the MEAC, out front making sure that students' voices are heard and all those in their regional footprint geographically are getting a chance to make that statement. I think that is significant. I'm just catching out there. I see your I voted sticker and you snuck that in there, Charles. I see
you like that, huh? Yeah.
Sir, I like it right there. With the uniqueness of Delta Phi chapter of HBCU,
yes,
representing brothers of Jackson State. For those that don't know, you should know, but that's an ice cold brother right there. Good job, Charles. I like that the way you do it.
No doubt.
But back to analysis, when you look at the MEAC and the HBCUs, they have literally been out front for the community in regards to many of the decisions they made in terms of delaying stuff. We'll get a chance to have Charles on in a couple of weeks to talk about the framework of basketball in a little more details. Obviously, a lot more information has come out, so it'll be interesting to hear what does that mean in regards to what basketball may look like as they forge ahead in so many different dynamics. But kudos to all the HBCU conferences. We'll get a chance to take a little more deep dig. I know MEAC also, since we're on the MEAC Council's Cross Country Championship for 2021, in regards to what that looks like. That makes sense. Remember, cross country is usually a fall sport. So if you're going to try to have spring track and field for your distance relays, oftentimes you have the same athletes competing in cross country that come back and complete indoor and outdoor track and field for the distance run. So it'll be challenging to have both of that. So I presume that cross country was going to get a hit. The good thing is that pretty much those student athletes are participating, as I said, indoor and outdoor track. So if track and field can kick off, they will still get a chance to participate in a sport, not necessarily cross country. So big news there. That was October 29th. Mid-Eastern announced it will cancel cross country championships for 2021. The conference consulted with the head coaches from the cross country coaches and student athletes, and they were in favor of cancellation. The league athletic directors and championship administrative committee also approved of the move. So that's news. This is off the heels of Bethune-Cookman making their announcement next week. And so it'll be fascinating. It's going to be tough to see what will take place. Obviously, we heard also with the CIAA talking about not having football, but it looks like there's going to be a different direction for the SIAC. What other news before we jump on that, or that may be something that you might want to get on? What other news of the day do you have out there, Charles?
Actually, that is the direction I was going, and this comes to us from HBCU Game Day, and this comes today. The SIAC announced its athletic plans for the remainder of the 2020-2021 academic year. It does not include a football championship. The league announced on today that it will not be sponsoring football, cross country, or women's volleyball. Basketball will be moving forward, but with a limited capacity. The men's and women's schedule will begin on January 10th, with teams playing a 12 to 14 game schedule. From that point, they will play the SIAC basketball tournament, and that will include recently admitted Allen University. They will take part in the tournament. So a big election year sort of thing, talking about this COVID-19, and again, it rears its head. We will go as COVID-19 goes. So, we take a look at conferences having to make adjustments, if you will, on the fly in regards to this pandemic.
Great point that you're making there, as it keeps moving and it's doing its thing. So we'll see how that plays out in so many different ways. Let me give some more shout outs before I get in here and talk about some other news of the day as we're preparing and getting things set up. Will Bowe is in the house, getting it done. Frank Nelson says, "What's up, Doc?" Yeah, what's going on? Big time Texas Southern University booster and alum. Willie Simmons said, "Watch the Xavier men's and women's sweep William Carey and Hoops last night." So we got a chance to jump on that. NIA action coming in there, getting it done for the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference as they get it done. Anthony Weston said, "What's up, everyone?" No doubt about it. Getting in there in so many different ways. So giving some great kudos for all those individuals there as we continue to move forward. With that, also out of the CIAA, as you talk about the SIAC, I thought the wording of that information that you put out was fascinating when you talk about the SIAC in regards to them moving forward, but very cautiously. It seems like they will really have this waiting approach. So it looks like they're going to try to kick it off, but they're not comfortable in regards to how much they will be able to get done. But I think it is a significant move, the fact that they're going to try it. They got the support of all involved. So it's fascinating to keep up with the SIAC when you see them moving forward, and not so much with the CIAA, at least in terms of football. The CIAA is going to try to do some other sports. And so it looks like we're going to have some HBCU sports out there. We just gave you an update. Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, they are already pounding the rock on the hardwood. And so it'll be fascinating. We'll be able to give you some scores and some analysis on that side. But we'll still mix in some of the proportional information on other areas as well, just to keep you updated and some insight on that. CIAA, when we talk about these counseling, CIAA is also counseling, as we talked about football earlier. Their counsels women's bowling and indoor track and field. It's going to be fascinating to see that as well. Obviously, indoor, even though we're talking about men's and basketball,
Sure,
it's a different framework when you're talking about indoor sports versus outdoor sports in terms of COVID-19. So you can imagine that those indoor sports capacity in regards to that looks like it'll be fascinating to see what goes. Obviously, some financial means of that. So with that said, Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association has canceled its indoor track and field and women's bowling regular season and championships. Each school that sponsors indoor track and field will have the autonomy to schedule competition throughout the season if desired, to allow teams and student athletes the opportunity to qualify for the NCAA Division II National Championship meet should it take place. So they're not doing it as a conference, but they're giving some leeway to the conference members to kind of decide, I shouldn't say kind of, but allow them to decide if they want to move forward. And so that was fascinating when you talk about that. In that framework so much, so a lot going on there. What else do you have for us, Charles, in terms of the news of the day?
Sure thing, and this came to us toward the end of last week, but the Black College Football Hall of Fame released the 25 finalists for induction into its class of 2021. That happened on last Thursday. The list includes 22 players and 3 coaches. Listen up for these 22 players. Joe 747 Adams from Tennessee State, Coy Bacon from Jackson State, Verlin Biggs from Jackson State, Dwayne Board from North Carolina A&T, Ben Coates from Livingstone College, Greg Coleman from Florida A&M, Clem Daniels from running back from Prairie View A&M, Kevin Dent, the safety from Jackson State in the mid-'80s, Donald Driver from Alcorn, Jimmy Giles from Alcorn State University, tight end. He was Doug Williams' favorite target at Tampa Bay. Winston Hill from New York Jets and Texas Southern University. Richard Huntley from Winston-Salem State University. Henry Lawrence, offensive lineman from Florida A&M. He anchored those Raiders lines from the 1970s. Kansas City Chief Albert Lewis. He was a defensive back at Grambling State University. Tyrone McGriff, offensive lineman from Florida A&M. I love these nicknames, Doc. John Big Train Moody, running back from Morris Brown College, 1939 to 1941. Nate Newton, offensive lineman from Florida A&M. Elijah Pitts, running back from Lander Smith College. Jake Reed from Grambling State University. Johnny Walden, he was a quarterback at Elizabeth City State University. Sammy White, wide receiver from Grambling State. And Roy Nell Young, defensive back from Alcorn State University. So those gentlemen were the finalists as far as the players. The coach finalists, Willard Bailey, he was head football coach at Virginia Union, Norfolk State, St. Paul's, and Virginia Lynchburg. Rudy Hubbard, head coach from Florida A&M from 1974 to 1985. And the great William Billy Nix, head coach, Morris Brown, 1930-1935, 1937-1939, 1941 and 1942, and at Prairie View from 1945 to 1957, as well as 1952 to 1965. So those are your 22 players and 3 coaches who are finalists for induction into the Black College Football Hall of Fame.
Man, boy, there's some names, as you said, those names, those nicknames, Big Train, especially out of 30,
Big Train.
30, 40s, boy. I guess everybody's rolling them trains. Them trains was awesome to people, so a lot of people.
Hey, we got to bring those nicknames back, Doc.
Yeah, Joe 747, boy, you know he was lifting it. You know, he was throwing that rock at football all across the field like a plane, talking about 747. That's when people were just getting into that too. So you know he was taking off. So yeah, that's fascinating when you see that in those names. Obviously, Clem Daniels, Prairie View, you know, big fan of his, 56, 59. I really like the diversity of the years that they have, different players, you know, different eras. So it'll be fascinating to see what that is. Donald Driver, obviously, I got to follow him during my time watching professional football when I was a little more of a fan then. So it's fascinating to see what goes on there. Jimmy Giles, Alcorn, Winston Hill, recently inducted Hall of Famer into the National Football Hall of Fame, if you would, Pro Football Hall of Fame, as they say. Offensive lineman from Texas Southern, played in the 60s, 63. And, you know, obviously, it's hard to talk about different eras because the talent was just so good, whether you're talking 20, 30s. But in the 60s, there's something about the 50s and 60s, even towards the 70s, about that talent. When you see them getting a chance to play in the NFL, and how many of these players were studs in the SWAC, or certainly during that era, and then they go on to get a chance to play in the NFL. Some of them even coming out of the AFL at that time. It's fascinating when you start talking about all what's going on there in so many different ways. That sticks out to me a lot in the different ways. As I talk about those 30s and 40s, those nicknames start to come out so many different ways. Tyrone McGriff, we talking about FAMU. Albert Lewis, defensive back, Grambling State University, I'm sure from 79 to 82. So you get a chance to see some of those wars coming down with Jackson State as you were a pup, as they would say then, fascinated with the football play. So I know that was probably fascinating. And then you got Roynell Young, defensive back from Alcorn State. You got to see, I'm sure of that. Sammy White went on to coach some wide receiver, Grambling State University. Family man of the G-men there. So fascinating to see that legacy to kick off. And everybody remembers Jake Reed in terms of not what he just did at Grambling, but what he did in Minnesota Vikings, wide receiver, 87 and 90, kind of bringing it up some, if you would. Then you go into the CIAA, quarterback at Elizabeth City State University, 1965 to 68. Morris Brown, as you talked about the legacy there, getting a chance to look at what they're doing with John Moody. So Ben Coates, another one of those guys, tight end, Livingston College, 87, 89. I remember him with the New England Patriots.
With the Patriots, yeah.
North Carolina A&T is in here, the Aggies defensive end. Dwayne Board, he was serious. Got to give you some love with your Jackson State folks. You would never forgive us on that. Berlin Biggs, Coy Bates. In terms of that, in Tennessee State, Joe, 747 out. With that, no further ado, we have none other than the legend itself in this new era as he makes a name for himself. Coach Willie Simmons, head football coach at FAMU, previous head coach at Prairie View A&M University, as they said. You know, he couldn't wait till I get new positions and more money. My wallet, my checkbook wasn't quite big enough to keep him there. I tried. He said, go home. Said the wife had a lot to do with it, so I respected that. So I kindly put my wallet up. I tried to drop it under the table. You know, we go out for the little steak dinner. He's like, Dr. Cavil, here you go, it's your wallet. I said, oh, thank you. I said, there's something in there for you, coach. You know. He said, oh, good. You know, you trained me well. I was like, man, it didn't work. So, you know, nothing but the best from a coach here. You know, I really appreciate so many different ways how he does his business. And obviously, as a media person, you have relationships, booster, whatever you want to call it. But sometimes you just get a kindred with a coach and you just like a person for what he is. You get to see him around his family and things of that nature, and really excited about the opportunities. But I will say this, Coach. I've been trying to find a way to get the Prairie View Panthers and FAMU on the schedule, right? And that was before this magical move. And so now it's going to happen. But when that happens, you know, there's going to be a little more of that Panther over here. You know, I'm going to all that great sounds again, but, you know, I want to get to the celebration mode myself, so, and not just be covering it, you know. So, you know, all the best there. But I'm going to tell you now, don't get too excited with all that play calling you like to do over there. You know, you already got our next coach, as time will come out, and we'll see if he can get a chance as you grooming him. When time comes, with your offensive coordinator, you got him, you took him from the Panthers. So I don't know. There's a lot going on. This is a difficult conversation. As you see, I'm trying to march through it, Coach. But with that, let me go ahead and let you talk a little bit. What's going on, Coach?
Not too much. I'm trying to figure out why Charles so giddy down there. I think I know why. I think I got a good ideas of why he's so giddy down. He's been smiling since I got on. You hadn't even said anything. He was cheesing from ear to ear like a Cheshire cat. I mean, I think it got something to do with that new hire they got down there in Jackson. But I'm gonna let that one go.
Yeah, Coach, I got a little new ammunition for you. So thank you. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Slack.
Great to be on, guys. Great to see you guys.
Yes, indeed.
With that, Dwayne Lewis gave a shout out. He said, give Willie that fire. He had 2 flames up there, so he wanted to give you a little shout out over as he getting stuff done with Golden Lines in Pine Bluff. And congratulations to Dwayne Lewis. He did finish up on his master's not too long ago, so he continued to challenge himself not only in terms of his career path, but on the academic side. So kudos to him on that. as we get into this conversation, we care, but a lot of seriousness going on. But we had you on before when you were talking about your voice as a coach in regards to, frankly, the racism that was taking place. Obviously, a lot of that was right after George Hill, a lot more than that. And you were one of the coaches at the college level that spoke out, really at any level in any sport, that brought a voice from an athletic lens in terms of a coaching perspective. You had some players out there speaking, particularly at the professional level, but you confronted this in a lot of ways. And to some degree, I saw your pain in regards to what that looked like. But want to get it in there. Why was that important to you before we move forward and talk about your players taking the next step and how you supported them? But in general, just coming from behind that, why was that important to you?
Well, obviously, growing up here in the South and playing football basically my entire life, I see the impact that football has on this demographic. And, as coaches, many times we're some of the most visible individuals in the communities, and you look at me growing up and Bobby Bowden, what he was able to achieve here in Tallahassee, Jake Gaither, Billy Joe, Rudy Hubbard, the list goes on and on. So growing up, some of the most influential people that I knew were the head football coaches at our respective institutions here with Florida State and Florida A&M. And so now that I'm in that position, I do understand the platform that I have. And it's a blessing to be in this spot, to be in this seat. But it also comes with a huge responsibility because we are looked upon by many people, for not just wins and losses, but to be leaders in our respective communities. And so when you see things like what happened to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many countless others, the time had finally come for us as coaches to stand up and say something. We stood on the sideline for too long. Some of us, came out and said things before, but as a collective body, I think this was the first time that we actually challenged our peers to get out and be vocal about the injustices that are going on around us. Oftentimes, most of the individuals that we coach look like George Floyd. If you're a female coach, a coach of female sport, those young women look like Breonna Taylor, the vast majority of them, if you're a football or basketball coach. And so, we can't continue to coach these young men and women and see the injustices that are going on all around us and be silent to it. And so I commend those, like Coach Moden up at North Carolina Central and Coach Donald Hill at Alabama State, some of the other more vocal coaches throughout the things that were going on this summer. But it's a small price to pay to be the leader of the program, of an athletic program, to speak out against things that we know are wrong and no longer sit on the sidelines.
Great point you're making there. Is that a jersey? Is that your jersey that you have behind you?
Yeah, that's my Star College jersey.
Oh man, boy, I tell you, talented. I see talented, Coach Charles. Let me let you jump
Coach,
in.
Sure. I wanted to ask you about, and you were named the Tallahassee Democrats 2019 Person of the Year, but what did it mean for you in terms of leading rallies and touring the middle schools and the high schools around Tallahassee, especially through the west and the south sides of Tallahassee, talking about peer pressure and staying off the streets and chasing, their goals and things of that nature, in terms of encompassing what it is that you want to do within the community down here?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it kind of alludes back to what I said, being one of the more influential members of this community. Again, I remember the reactions that we got at James A. Shanks High School or Carter Pamela Middle School when Bobby Bowden came. And he was only coming to recruit. He wasn't coming to give a message or talk about staying in school. He was coming to recruit prospective student athletes. But just the excitement around the school that the legendary Bobby Bowden was coming to our school, or Billy Joe, during that time. And so just understanding, again, the platform that we have, the young people in the communities know who we are. They may not always know who the mayor is. They may not always know who the state governor is. They definitely most of the time don't know who their local politicians and leaders are, but they know who the football coaches are, at these respective universities. So I thought it was important for me to get out and be visible to talk about gun violence. It's been well documented here in this area that my wife and I witnessed a young man, two individuals lose their lives, right after a huge football game. We went to celebrate and heard some gunshots and came outside to see two young men, fighting for their lives. And we stood there until EMS came, and at that moment, right then, we just said, hey, we have to do something. So the next day, I called a good buddy of mine, and we rounded up some of the more influential people in the community, some attorneys, some radio personalities, just people that we felt the young people would know and recognize. And we got out and we walked the streets. We started on the south side of town, and we went to, the quote unquote projects. I don't like to use that term, but we went to the housing projects, and we spoke to the young people, and we got a pulse for what they felt. So many times we feel as the adults that we know the answers, that we know what's going on, but we felt we need to go to the source. These young people are feeling like they have to turn to gun violence for whatever reason. We need to find out why, and so we went out and we did that. And from that point, we started trying to put together programs. We started a school initiative where we've gone to 8 middle and high schools to talk about the importance of staying in school, to talk about, the downside of gun violence and all of those things. Because again, we saw us losing control of our city. Tallahassee is near and dear to me. I grew up 20 minutes away from here. My family, all my family went to Florida A&M. Many members that I know, and many of my football players are from the south side and west side of Tallahassee, like you said, and we saw the city slipping away from us. And so we felt it was time for us to take the city back, and that starts with our youth. So getting in front of them, talking to them about the issues that we've discussed earlier, and we were making a lot of headway. And then obviously COVID-19 put a stop to a lot of that because we're not able to go to the schools now. But as soon as we're able to resume that, we plan to go right back in there. We have a few more middle schools and high schools left to hit, but we think it's a very, very powerful message that needs to be conveyed to our youth, because again, it may not change today or tomorrow, but in the very near future, we're going to see our young people realize their dreams and not have their lives taken away by senseless gun violence.
Sure thing.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment. We're here with Coach Willie Simmons, the head football coach of FAMU, interviewing him about all things in terms of the program, not just on the field, not just in the classroom in terms of academics, but outside both of those in terms of the community. Now, if you would, Coach, if you stay with us, we're going to take a quick break. And we'll be right back with you to finish up this part of the interview. This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Again, stay with us. We'll be a quick break, and we'll be back with Coach Willie Simmons, head football coach at FAMU.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
Man, I'm hungry now with mangoes. I got all this A5A on, and my understanding that the owner of it happens to be an alpha man, so I'm going to have to see what I can do to make sure I get taste his food when I get back into the area. A little bit of this COVID allows us to get back to it. Boy, I tell you, COVID has made me lose weight, so I got to be careful. I don't want to jump back out there too fast. I didn't even picked it back up, and all the work went for nothing. But we'll find a way to make it back.
No doubt.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. As we said, Mike Washington is out on assignment, but we have Coach Willie Simmons, the head football coach of FAMU, with our interview, and we'll get right back into that interview. Let's stay with that community framework, but this time we're going to do it in terms of your players. You had a young man that organized in late August, I believe it was, member of your football team organized, We Have No Choice, March for Justice. What brought this about, and why was it important for you, as I've seen in the background, allowing them to have their place and lead it, but you were there to support, along with, in my understanding, some other administrators from FAMU University. So I thought that was important to see that, one, a young man decided from everything that was going on that he wanted to take action, and certainly did it in a positive manner, if there's such a thing, in terms of how he could exercise his voice, and brought other people involved, not just football team, but other folks of the community and Florida A&M in terms of the institution. I thought that was a major statement. And what brought that together, and why was it important from a head coaching position to support that? As we've seen head coaches do certain things, whatever, but that's not always the case. And let's be frank with it. There are some ramifications politically from one standpoint, whether it's good or bad, how we see it, in regards how that can change the dynamics of your career. So the fact that you decided that it was time to not only lend your voice as you did, but support even more in terms of your students. Talk about that a little bit and how all that came together and why that was important for you to be out front with that.
Well, it was definitely one of my more proud moments, one of the most proud moments as a head coach. Huge shout out to Blake Simpson. He saw something happening like we all did, and like I talk about, he decided to not stand on the sideline. So it was completely his idea. He and two of his classmates got together and they decided that they wanted to organize a march. And so he brought it to my attention. And of course, I supported it 100%. And all I asked him was, what could I do to support you? And so I made a couple of calls to some local politicians and the city commissioner to make sure that we followed all the guidelines. Obviously, you can't just go out there and start marching because you want to march. There's some protocols that you have to follow. And we wanted to make sure that we did that. Obviously, this was during the heightened time of protests across the United States. And unfortunately, some of those groups, were marching, but, causing some destruction and looting and some of those things. And so obviously local law enforcement were on high alert. And the one thing that we did not want a FAMU football march, even though there were a lot of other individuals partaking. We didn't want a FAMU march to be defined by violence, the local law enforcement, because unfortunately they don't know many of our players. We're not Florida State, the school across the street that has more of maybe a face in the community, so we wanted to make sure that we did it the right way. Tallahassee Police Department, Leon County Sheriff's Department did a phenomenal job. They blocked off the streets for us, and we started right there at the Signet Center, which is less than a mile from our campus, and we marched to the state capitol. And Blake and three of his classmates, they stood on the square, on the steps of the state capitol, and they talked to the crowd about how important it was to vote, how important it was to use their voice. And I thought it was just an amazing moment for not only Blake, but for all the students. Again, the football players that were part of it. There were some Florida State athletes, basketball players. I think some of the volleyball players were there. But just to see such a huge crowd walking down Gang Street and to go up Monroe Street, which is one of the major highways there in Tallahassee, in the city of Tallahassee, leading up to the Capitol, and to see them stand on those steps and do the same thing that countless others have done over the course of our history, really just, again, it didn't make me look at Blake in another light, because he's always been a phenomenal young man, very smart, just well-rounded individual. And but again, I think it was just important for them as students to see us as coaches walking hand in hand, step by step, and like you said, If we as coaches are more concerned about our career, our jobs, our careers, than about activism and justice, then we're doing it for the wrong reasons. So if me leading or standing in the front of a march cost me an opportunity to coach somewhere else or make more money or whatever the case may be, then obviously it's not for me. I have faith in the good Lord that He's going to always protect, my family, myself and my team. And that was my only prayer, that we were safe and that the message got across. And I think it did. I think it was very, very powerful. I saw the HBCU Game Day, picked it up and ran a huge story on it. Again, which does a lot for our community and for HBCUs as a whole, because people need to see what we're doing, out in the communities, because we don't necessarily get as much of the publicity for the good things we do. We're on the front page when it's something bad that goes on at the HBCU, but when we do something good, a lot of times it gets stuck on that back page and not very many people see it. So for us to be out on the forefront doing that, we didn't do it for that purpose, but I do think that's a residual effect of those guys taking a stance, and young women, because it wasn't just Blake. But again, just a phenomenal moment. And like you said, we coach and we get judged by wins and losses. But when it's all said and done, walking step for step with Blake Simpson and my football team will be one of the memories that I take with me when my football career, coaching career is all said and done.
No doubt about it. And shout out to, as you said, the HBCU Game Day, the great work they do out there. Stephen Gaither, Tyler Carr, Bon Wilson right there at the FAMU, and the work that he puts in, and Wally Pip in terms of that. Check them out, HBCUGameDay.com. Obviously, a lot of the work they do. I get to partner up with them and things of that nature, especially on the Aspire Network television show they have. Check them out every Sunday as they get it done. And then if you can't catch it live there, go to the YouTube where you can find information on HBCU Game Day. Find our stuff over there as well inside the HBCU Sports Lab. So yes, make sure that you like and subscribe to both of those networks, as we need all the followers we can to continue to give you this great coverage that we do. With that, let me let Charles follow up with a question. We have a couple more questions, Coach, and then we'll let you get on with the evening in regards to all things going on with FAMU University. Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, Coach, and I wanted to ask this question because Florida tonight will be a hotbed of political activity with the electoral college votes there in Florida, and it could be very well be the state that determines quite a bit tonight. Is there any added significance for you trying to, get your Florida A&M, the community as a whole, out to vote, I'm always curious in terms of how it is for you being there in the state capital of Florida in terms of the significance, the personal significance it is for you.
No question about it. And I think what's important for our guys, and we've talked to them for months about the importance of voting. We made sure that they were all registered to vote. Even when we did the march, there were individuals out there registering them that day. But we definitely made that a part of our initiative. Big shout out to State Representative Ramon Alexander, a FAMU alum who's a minority whip here in the state, for taking time out, an hour out of his night to talk to our young men on a Zoom call about the importance of voting and what this election means. And I think being here in the state capitol really showed our guys that it's more than just about the presidential election. I think that's one of the things that our young people, and even many of us, kind of have that misnomer that it's only about the presidential election. It's about local election. It's about state election. It's about going out and really, learning about the issues and the things that impact our respective communities and our everyday way of life. And so really for those guys to just understand how important it was for them to utilize the voices that we have. Our vote is our voice, and our voice is our power. And so for us to get out there and utilize that power that we have is something that we've been very, very adamant about. I truly commend the NCAA. We joke around. They don't get a lot of things right, but they did get this one right, where they mandated that today on National Election Day was everyone in the country had the day off. No student athlete could be required to do anything today, because it was that important for us to get out here and vote. And it shouldn't take today for that to be the case. We should have done it a long time ago. But the fact that they saw the importance of this shows that they're not tone deaf as well. And so I do commend our team. They've been out here. I commend Florida A&M. We have multiple voting sites on our campus. It's been a huge turnout, and like you said, I don't want to say Florida determines the election, but I think it's safe to say I think the last 4 elections have whoever won Florida has won that election.
Right.
And so, there are some swing states, but we are probably the swing state when it comes to the presidential election. And so I've seen a huge turnout, and it'll be interesting to see what happens tonight in the coming days. I'm not 100% sure that this thing will be determined tonight. I've prepared myself mentally for the stretch for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, knowing who's in office and how adamant he's been about not, taking the results of the election if it doesn't go in his favor. And so, the wife and I prepare for many, many nights of CNN and Fox News coverage to kind of see how this thing takes shape.
Yeah, no
No
doubt.
doubt about it. I wanted to continue in with that conversation, but shifted in terms of the landscape and how that has played out with the pandemic. COVID-19 teased a little bit about not being able to be as mobile as I'm used to being, or certainly in a lot of ways I would want to be, but it's all about protecting people, washing hands as we know now, making sure you're masking up. But now you're doing it in terms of leading a team, in terms of what that looks like. Your sister institution down the street, as we like to talk about in so many ways, they're in a community where not only the state, as you know more than anybody, is really red hot for the wrong reason. And then you had a city that is even having a higher spike, and they had to make a difficult decision. But I asked you in regards to how are you preparing everything outside of when you take it out in terms of decisions that are made in the state in regards to your football team and preparing for potentially what would be an opportunity to play this season. How is that looking dealing with the pandemic in a lot of ways on and off the field in terms of academic? A lot of students are online, I'm sure, hybrid classes. How is all that played out as you try to prepare to see if you can get a spring season under your belt?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And one phrase that we use a lot in football, I'm pretty sure other coaches use it as well, is we tell our young men to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And what that means is you always have to be prepared for the unexpected. COVID-19 has brought about a lot of unexpected things. Football this fall being canceled, classes going almost 100% virtual, not being able to go out and party and do some of the things that an 18 to 23-year-old is used to doing. And so we talk to our guys all the time about controlling what we can control. And basically all that is how we conduct ourselves. Are we as a football team going to be responsible and accountable to not only ourselves, but our teammates, our coaches, the support staff, our fellow classmates, and those that we come in contact with? Many of our young men return home, during the summertime, on the weekends, during holidays. And most of us have a mother or grandmother or whoever there that may be more susceptible to the virus than we are. The 18 to 23-year-old body is typically some of the most in shape individuals in our society. And so we don't see the virus affecting them the same way it affects those with pre-existing health conditions. And so we just try to make sure that they're mindful of how they are, because as you can see across the country with the spikes, there are many individuals at this point who kind of feel like the virus is either not that big of a deal, or for whatever reason, the whole mask mandate and the social distancing mandate is just not being followed by a lot of people. And so, we want to make sure that, again, and we talked about the other day as a team yesterday, matter of fact, how we as student athletes, and particularly football players, are judged by a different lens, or judged through a different lens than everyone else. Because again, there's one thing that if there's a spike on campus, that's just a spike on campus. But it's a totally different thing if there's a spike on campus that can be traced back to the football team. That's a totally different media spin there, and it's definitely going to be front page news. And so, it's not fair, but like we tell them yesterday, life isn't fair. And that's just how we have to understand that platform and that position that we're in. And so for us, it's all been about responsibility, about safety, about doing the right things. And then when it comes to class, like I told them, they can take football away for a fall, possibly even a spring, but they can't take you being a student away. And so we still have to make sure that we take responsibility for our actions in the classroom, making sure that we're still going to study table, even though that's all virtual now. There are no in-person study tables now. Even our academic meetings are oftentimes virtual. And so it's changed our everyday way of life. And we understand that some of those guys flourish more in the in-person setting, but we have to figure out ways to get it done. And so we understand the challenges that COVID-19 presents, but we go to an HBCU, so that's one thing we can be safe saying we're not adverse to the challenges. Adverse to challenges. We know they come all the time. So we have to just be prepared for this next challenge and prepare ourselves for when we finally are able to play football. Hopefully that's this spring, and we're working extremely hard to be prepared when that time does come. But for us, it's about controlling what we can control, and that's how we carry ourselves on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe and those around us safe as well.
It looks like we might have lost Dr. Cavil there while we wait for him to come up. Just in closing, Coach Simmons, I want to say, thank you for in terms of the way you lead that program, the Florida A&M program. I laugh and josh with you a lot, but always a big admirer of the way not only you carry yourself, but the way you sort of frame your vision for how you want the Florida A&M program to look. So definitely kudos to you in that regards.
I appreciate that. And we'll be friends until Labor Day weekend next year, Charles.
There you go. Come Miami.
No doubt about it. As we ask you that, and we close and let you get out of here, as you said, you have an evening plan. It may be a late evening in regards to watching what goes on. But talk about the summer BOT granted $10 million for the Bragg Stadium upgrades. How will that affect your program? Upgrades affect the game day experience. Last thing we'll ask you, tied it in, and any other comments you want to make about the program, if you would. Go ahead and close on that.
Yeah, the good Lord was definitely smiling down on FAMU when we were able to secure the $10 million because it was much needed. And this wasn't a situation where we were asking for something that was a luxury. The renovations to Bragg Memorial Stadium were a necessity. It was well documented that, we may not have had a home to play in 2021 had we not made significant improvements to Bragg Memorial Stadium. This is a stadium that's been standing since the 60s. And so obviously there were some structural things that needed to be repaired. There were some things as far as ADA approval in the restrooms and things of that nature that needed to be addressed. And so the lighting obviously, has become an issue. And so we're able to address a lot of those things with this $10 million. And so it's definitely going to, give us a home to play in for the foreseeable future. Bragg Memorial Stadium is definitely one of the more storied venues in all of college athletics, not just Black college football. And we're very excited to be able to continue playing there, so look forward to the games between, the Grambling, the Southerns, the Alcorns, the Jackson States, the Alabama States, now that we're a member of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, going into 21. And so we're just excited that the city saw fit to allocate the funds. It typically doesn't work that way. Typically you see all the money going across the street and us having to kind of, get what we can. But for them to allocate this money to Florida A&M and for us to use it towards our stadium repairs and renovations will go a long way in continuing to build this program back to the level of excellence that we came accustomed to, and so just tremendous things that are going on right now at Florida A&M. I commend my athletics director, Vice President Courtney Gaucher, and his team for everything that they've done in the 10 months since he's been here. Brand new locker room renovation, brand new weight room renovations, the training room renovations are coming, new flooring throughout the facility, new roof that's been put on to address some much needed water issues that we've been faced with over the years. And now again, I can say it, it looks like a Division I program now. When you walk in the building, you get a feel of walking into a storied program. And it's going to definitely help us in recruiting, and it's definitely going to help us continue to grow and build this brand into what we feel like the Southwestern Athletic Conference will become, which is the premier conference in FCS football. We're excited to be a part of it. We're looking forward to beginning that slate in fall of 2021. And, we hope that we have a control of this virus by then so we can get the huge crowds that we're accustomed to. One of the advantages to going into the SWAC, coming into a conference that's led the nation in attendance 38 of the last 39 years, we're looking forward to adding to that. Because obviously Bragg FAMU is one of the largest attended football programs in the country, and we're looking forward to adding to that number. So great times. Obviously, we opened up the slate down in Miami Gardens Labor Day weekend, fall of 21, against the Jackson State Tigers and their new head coach. And we're gonna usher them into Black college football the right way. And
I'm sure. Looking forward to it.
we're gonna make sure that he gets this.
Shotgun, Coach Willie Simmons, I know, Coach.
But no, we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it.
I know there might be a chance in terms of trying to get the spring season in, and don't want to put the cart before the horse in a lot of ways. But with you talking about Bragg Stadium, will you, if you're able to do the spring season, will you be able to still be able to play the game while they're doing construction? Will you be able to play on the site? Or how that?
Yeah, well, that's something that we're discussing now. Obviously, we have to see the timetable of when we'll begin construction. And obviously, with COVID and depending on the plan of how many fans we'll allow into the stadium, will have will play a huge role in that decision. And so if we're able to have maybe 20% capacity, that's roughly 5,000 fans, so we can theoretically fit 5,000 fans on the home side. Well, the west side, we don't have a home and visitor side. On the west side, which is the side, we're going to move the press box to the east side of the stadium, which now is currently on the west side. So the plan is to move the press box area to the east side of the stadium, the side adjacent to the locker room. Now we'll cross. Coming out of the locker room, we have to cross to go to the opposite sideline. Obviously, that causes some issues sometimes with, 18 to 23-year-old hot-headed guys in a close game trying to cross the halftime, go back to the locker room. So we definitely we don't want those issues. Yeah, but no, but that's but that's the plan, and so we'll have a plan. We'll have a plan to play, obviously, and if if that means playing at Bragg, then we'll do that. If that means finding another venue, then obviously we've done that before in the past as well. So I'm just looking forward to hopefully playing some football. That itch has grown to a burn, and that burn has grown to an infection by this point. Just sitting here watching other people play football on Saturdays, even though my Clemson Tigers, you see my jersey back there, we're still doing our thing, and huge game this weekend against Notre Dame. But I sure would love to be sitting in the orange and green coaching the game on the sideline instead of watching the games from the sideline. But whenever that happens, hopefully this spring, we'll be ready to bring some exciting football to North Florida.
No doubt about it. With that, Coach, you go. Appreciate your time and let you get back to it. Again, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules, particularly on the day like today, Election Day. But I think your comments in terms of providing that framework and that roadmap was appropriate for such a day as today. So appreciate you doing that. And we look forward to it, to having you on more often as we start to get ready. It's closing down. Before you know, we do have the spring 2021, but right after that is the fall 21. July 1st, boy, it really changes in a whole different way. East side of the division, SWAC championship, boy, it should be fun as we get it on. As Coach Willie Simmons knows how to talk a little noise, so he'll make it entertaining on the field and off the field. Kudos to Coach.
Well, hey, let me say this real quick before I leave, and I told my team this, and I've said it, everywhere, and I think it's important for our listeners to understand as well. The battle is not won tonight, regardless of what happens. Obviously we have our own preferences of what we want to happen tonight or tomorrow, but the true test is what happens after that. And we as African Americans in this country for so long have, either gone to the polls or not gone to the polls. And then after that, we all kind of wait for the next 4 years or 2 years for a governor election. So, but it's important of what we do tomorrow, and the next day, in the next month, and holding our politicians accountable. We're putting them in office for a reason. We're not electing them just because we want them to be in office. We're electing them because we feel like they have our best interests at heart. And so let's hold them accountable to that. Let's hold their feet to the fire to the things that they've run on, the platforms that they've run on. Let's hold them accountable to it. If they say they have a plan for developing Black businesses and, and improving the poverty rate and the literacy rate in Black communities, well, let's hold them accountable to that. And so it's not just what happens on November 3rd. It's what happens on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, all the way until the next time we can get to the polls. And if they don't, stay true to their word, then let's get them out of there as well. But let's make sure that we're being vigilant and aggressive in our demands, and that we're not just holding it all on one day, which is election day, and then sitting back to see what happens to us.
No doubt about it. Well said. Thank you for your time, Coach. Perfect way to close out the show as we get it in. We'll look forward to many more of these as you continue to be the dynamic person in so many different ways. I look forward to talking with you and catching up on all things Willie Simmons as well as all things FAMU. The Rattlers, as they say, strike again. Go Rattlers. Woo! That's making me nervous. Charles, that little strike seemed like it was you there. Oh, we can't September.
Yeah, I just looked.
We're gonna do something about that big smile. I hope somebody took a picture of it. I hope somebody took a picture of that big smile he had on his face when I got on.
I don't want any bulletin board material. I'll wipe it off.
I appreciate you guys. Have a great evening.
Yes, sir.
All right, take care. Have a good one. Oh boy, that's fun. I'll give you this one, Charles, to put the smile back on your face as you are so good of a fan to us in so many ways. On a serious note, Deion Sanders has supported lined up for Jackson State NFL and Major League Baseball Hall of Famer Bo Jackson, who is a motivational speaker, offered to visit Jackson State for free. Statement from Jackson: I'm not bragging. It's a blessing. I have corporations that pay me to come around the country and speak to their employees or at their seminars. Jackson said on Sanders' 21st and Prime podcast, I'm going to say this to you. Deion, I'm going to wait for you to invite me down to come speak to your boys on the house. The only thing I can accept is you get me there. West Coast rap legend Snoop Dogg expressed his appreciation for HBCU while on Shannon Sharp's Club Shay Shay. We've heard Shannon Sharp talk about his appreciation, his excitement of Coach Prime, as they say in those parts, about what's going on. So it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fun in a lot of different ways, not just for Jackson State, for the SWAC. To watch this, no matter how it comes out, this is certainly entertaining. Snoop went on to say, this beautiful Prime at an HBCU because now we can start sending kids there with a real purpose. Brada said on the show, a lot of times they try to make it look unattractive, but when you have someone like Deion who's prestigious, smart, sharp, and understands football, now the HBCUs looked attractive again. I thought that was a fascinating quote there. That's where all of the talent was until all the universities started stealing our kids, taking our fame, stripping us down, and kicking us to the curb when things go bad. Brada said, HBCU are the best thing going. A lot of people may not realize that we're not the hugest fans of Snoop Dogg or his bio. Remember, his family's from Mississippi. So there's appreciation for him in terms of the state of Mississippi and all things there. As you can see coming out of this, as we see a different side of Snoop Dogg in a lot of ways, but the sincerity on this seemed to be significant. Sanders was busy last week picking out swatches for the team suits. He stated every game day will look good and feel good, thus results in us playing good. Questions: do you believe that you look good, you play good? I certainly believe that. I know I'm like the person. I like to look good. I come on the show, make sure people understand that. Even as you know by now, taking off the weight to make sure I even look better and healthier on the outside and the inside. With that, we're coming to a close. Thought I'd find a way to bring a smile to your face there, Charles, as we close up. We'll continue to do it in so many different ways, positive things going on. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. And our review and our interview with the head football coach at FAMU, Coach Willie Simmons, talking about many different things of activism, voting, and all things. So for all those out there, stay on and follow us as the Jericho broadcast. Now, I'll be at least the first 30 to giving you some updates and my thoughts on the election and how things are going to give you a different perspective in regards to what this thing look like. So again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavil's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop every Tuesday right here at 6 o'clock. Shout out to Lonnie Shaw, North Carolina A&T, Varick Williams, Southern University, Hampton Western A&M. He's talking about that Alabama A&M and FAMU Battle of the Bands will continue. Shout out to Thomas White in terms of what he's doing with mobile threads. He's designing some stuff for it. We'll have that stuff for you pretty soon, so check out on that. If Biden wins, hold him accountable. If Trump wins, hold him accountable, no doubt about it. G. Boom Holly, just wanted to say good evening, fellow 3P tailgaters. Yes, indeed. Check us out on Twitter. That is Inside HBCU Sports Lab 1. Check us out on YouTube. Shout out to Chris Gardner, the work he's doing along with G. Boom Holly. You can go to, again, check us out on the platform Inside HBCU Sports Lab on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe and give us the love there, as we need that support. Chuck Hunt, Snoop Dogg, visited his grandmother years back, Christmas in Macomb, Mississippi. Willie Alex Hines says, Lonnie, that is what I'm talking about in regards to giving that information, no doubt about it. Kenya Cofield Jones is watching. Shout out to the women out there. Love the support all the way around. Just want to say thank you. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyatta Cavil on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I want to say thank you for all the followers, the continued support in all many different ways. We really appreciate Willie Alex Hines and the rest of you all. Big time. We appreciate all the love. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Course
lecture dismissed.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay